Well, ladies and gentlemen, so nice to be here with you. It's a pleasure to be here with Ryan. We've had some wonderful experiences over the years, and today I'd like to be able to share with you some ideas that other agents across the country and around the globe are applying to be able to get better results in a shorter amount of time. Now, I started my career in real estate at age 19. That's me there on the left. Gee, I think I'm like a fine wine. I got better with age. And there was my team at Australian Real Estate. Now, when I applied for the job in real estate, they told me, Daniel, this is the only job for a 19-year-old who has no education. You dropped out of school at age 17, you're not educated, you can't work anywhere else, but you can get a job in real estate. Now, I kind of had two choices. I could have followed the path that my parents went down, and they were pawnbrokers and second-hand dealers. But I'd already spent 7 years in pawn. My mum was in pawn, my dad was in pawn, and the pawn shop, the pawnbrokers like cash converters, make sure we get the right one. It wasn't the place that I wanted to be. So when I joined real estate, I remember the 3-step sales training that I received from my leader. Do you remember yours? They said, there's your business card, there's the phone, go make sales.
Pretty much, mate, pretty much.
And I thought it was going to be that easy. And there's my, there's the business card. There it is. And so I picked up the phone and I started to dial. And you wouldn't believe it. The first person hung up the phone on me. The very first person I called hung up the phone. That would have never have happened to you, would have it? Nobody would have ever hung up the phone. The second prospect abused me. How dare you put those letters in my mailbox? You would have never have heard that before, would have you? And then the third person said, I'm on the do not call list. I'm calling Consumer Affairs. I'm going to report you. Wow, welcome to real estate. That was my first day. So luckily, you've got Ryan here as your mentor. And I also had a great mentor. And what my mentor said to me, he said, if you do what successful real estate agents do, you'll get the same result. And just like Ryan is giving you the blueprint for real estate success, my mentor gave me the blueprint. Now, within the first 6 months, I was in the top 10 sales creators in the country in my first 6 months. By 19 and a half, I was purchasing my first investment property. 1.5 years later, I had $500,000 invested in real estate, and I'd had my best month ever. I just listed 13 properties and sold 11. And I was only 22. So with those skills, I then ended up venturing out into the world. I started to manage, turn around $1 million businesses. I co-led a team of 17,000 people. Does anybody know who this is? Who's that person? Do you know who it is? John McGrath. I've talked about real estate and mindset on the stage with John McGrath. And I've also got clients who are transacting over 150 properties per year. So what I know is whatever your goal is, with the right blueprint, you'll be able to get there with Ryan. So in today's session, I'm going to focus not on sales strategies or techniques, but we're going to focus on the mindset. We're going to specifically talk about how painful experiences can actually impact our sales results. Now, these ideas I've shared with more than 20,000 of my clients globally. To back it up, I've also delivered more than 10,000 case studies into the science of emotional intelligence. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you the elixir. But it starts with emotional intelligence. Who's familiar with emotional intelligence? Give me a wave. Are you familiar? Excellent. Well, there's 5 pillars of emotional intelligence. The first is self-awareness. And self-awareness is about understanding why we think and feel the way that we do. And for more than 2,000 years, we've been studying this. How do people think? Because it's our thoughts that influence our feelings. And it's that emotional state that determines what we do and don't do. It determines our decisions and the results that we get. Now, secondly is self-regulation. And what we say is if you can't name it, you can't tame it. And I know real estate agents, they have no ego. Isn't that true? Real estate agents have no egos. We're the best at what we do, and what are we doing every day? We're selling. My mates still laugh at me. They say, Daniel, how are you? And I say, fantastic. How's the market? Couldn't be better. We're always selling, aren't we? We're always selling to ourselves. You're the best agent. You listed another property. I didn't get a no. I just learned a lesson. And we're always reframing things. But if we have an emotion and we can't name that specific emotion, then we can't tame the emotion. Does that make sense? Now, one negative emotion can impact your performance for 4 hours. It's going to write you off for 4 hours. You can't think clearly. You have an emotional hijack. You pick up your phone. What do? You scroll through Facebook, scroll through Instagram, scroll through YouTube. And we do all the things that we know we shouldn't be doing, but we can't stop ourselves. Thirdly, the third pillar is motivation. Now, this is not the Tony Robbins jump up and down, the T. Harv Eker saying, high five, you've got a millionaire mind. It's not that. Motivation is about resiliency. And if you want to be brilliant in real estate, you've got to be able to roll with the punches. Would you agree? What's the worst thing? It's beginner's luck. The worst thing in your career is when you pick up that phone to prospect and you know that 1 in 100 people are going to say yes, and the first person says yes. Isn't that the worst? Because you know you got to sit there and do another 99 calls and go through 99 rejections. True or false? You want it straight away, but when you get it, it's more painful. And we have to be able to keep moving forward with no loss of enthusiasm. So I want you to write this down. Enthusiasm outsells experience 10 to 1. And that was the first thing my mentor taught me. And I know Ryan teaches you the same thing. Enthusiasm outsells experience 10 to 1. Somebody who's energetic. It's not energetic like bursting out of your skin. You know, when you take that bottle of champagne and you shake it up, and the pressure builds and you know that you could pop the cork off and it's going to explode, but you never release it. You know that feeling? It's called constrained enthusiasm. And when you take that into a listing presentation, it's contagious. Now, for those of you who are meeting me for the first time, you probably haven't heard it yet, but emotions are more contagious than COVID. Agree, Joe? Emotions are more contagious than COVID. And when you're enthusiastic about what you do, when you're enthusiastic about helping your vendor achieve their goals, when you're enthusiastic to help your buyer find the right person or the right property, it's contagious. Maybe you don't agree, but maybe you grew up in a home where your parents fought a lot. There was a lot of fighting inside, and you could come home from school and you could walk through that front door and you could cut that air with a knife. You could feel the tension. Have you had that before? It's contagious, isn't it? So in motivation, it's about resiliency. The Japanese say, get knocked down 7 times, get back up 8 times. And this is the game of real estate, isn't it? If you get that appraisal and that listing on the first out of 100 calls, you can't lose that enthusiasm for the next 99 rejections. And when you master that, you have so much more success. Now, the fourth pillar is called social awareness. Social awareness is understanding how other people think and feel. Now, I know Ryan will talk about the golden rule, and I know he also talks about the platinum rule. The golden rule is treat others the way you want to be treated. But Ryan will tell you it doesn't work anymore. It's the platinum rule. Treat others the way they want to be treated. But it takes a level of empathy, doesn't it? To look across at the other person and say, this person is different. And when you can master that, you master empathy. But have you noticed that your empathy can get you into problems? Have you noticed this? Sometimes you care too much. and you get caught up in the bullshit story, and you hear all the conditions and the objections, and you say to yourself, I should be selling, I should be closing. But what happens? That emotion is contagious. You start to absorb their emotion. I know what it feels like for my cat to die. I know what it feels like for my grandmother to die. I could not possibly close on this person. That's when empathy becomes a problem. Why did they call you out? Because they have a problem. They need to get the highest amount for this property in the shortest amount of time, and they don't know how to do it. But having too much empathy can get in our way. Has that happened to you before? You've heard the sob story and you stop selling. It happens to me. I get so involved with them and I stop doing my job. Now, the fifth pillar is social regulation. This is the ability to communicate. And it's only my opinion that selling is just really sexy communication. It's just my opinion. And I believe when you can articulate your message in a way that the other person gets it and they feel smart, you can make a sale. And you've heard it many times from Ryan. He says, keep it simple. Keep it simple. He says it all the time, doesn't he? And when the other person feels intelligent, that's when you know you're an excellent communicator. And then the sale takes place. They look at you and say, I agree. This is what we want. We have a need for it. How can we work together? And what are those magic words that you love to hear as real estate agents? I'll leave it up to you. Isn't that a beautiful word? When the vendor says, I'll leave it up to you. You bring it onto the market. You look for your heart buyers. You get price in. We don't call it a price reduction, do we? We call it a price improvement. We don't reduce the price. We improve the price. We bring it down and we get it sold. Everybody is happy. Everybody moves on. And that's social regulation. So these are the 5 pillars of emotional intelligence. So that being said, I want to share some case studies of people like you who are applying these ideas in their real estate careers in real time. People doing this right now in this market. These results will probably blow you away that I'm about to share with you. But as they become emotionally intelligent, they make more money. It's been proven that 58% of your success is going to come down to your level of emotional intelligence. It has been proven for 40 years that people with higher levels of emotional intelligence make more money. L'Oreal, this is not for you, Ryan. You'll get the joke. But L'Oreal, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you wash your hair with their shampoo. They hire salespeople through the lens of emotional intelligence. And in the very first year, L'Oreal's salespeople make an additional $91,000 more than salespeople with low levels of emotional intelligence. Isn't that incredible? So let me share some things that's happening in real time. This is one of my clients from Melbourne. This is Matt Karan. Probably like you, he wanted to create financial security for his family. But when I met him, he was losing 6 sales every month because he lacked clarity. He didn't know who he was. But after he applied this system, he got clarity, and within 1 year, he started winning 6 new sales every month. Now, Real Estate Magazine, they saw this, they interviewed him, and because he learned about mindset, he had a 250% improvement in his sales income. So would anybody here today be angry if they increased their income by 250%? Would you be angry? Not at all. This is Raza. He was working for his uncle, but he always wanted to have his own office. But he just lacked the confidence. He had the skill, he had the knowledge, he just didn't have the right attitude. He lacked the confidence. But once he got the confidence, he took action. Within 9 months, he started his own office, and today he employs 14 people. This is Shirvi. This is a real estate agent in Malaysia. She was about to quit on her business in the middle of the pandemic, and she got caught up in doing all the wrong things. Instead of focusing on my business, I'm going to get caught up in crypto trading. After the crypto trading didn't work and she got scammed there, she went into foreign exchange. And while she was doing that, she paid no attention to her business. And her business went into a decline. She didn't want to trade foreign exchange. She didn't want to trade Bitcoin. She wanted to sell real estate. So she got her mindset in the right place. She reinvented her business. She won the Golden Phoenix Award in Malaysia, which is one of the top awards for entrepreneurs. And now she employs 40 agents. And this is taking place in real time. This is Alex. He's also from Malaysia, from a company called Propnex. He now has 50 agents working for him, and he won the Shanghai International Business Awards. This is Michael, selling real estate in Sydney. He made an additional $60,000 in commissions once he got his head in the right place. This is Charlie Lund. She's transacting 150 properties and doing $2.5 million per year right now in this market. So whatever your goal is, you can get there. The only question is, what's the question? How? That's the only question, isn't it? So Ryan is going to teach you a lot about skills and techniques. And what I'm going to bring to the party today is the mindset. So take a look at the screen. What I believe is it's really easy to lose focus. Would you agree? There's so many demands to prospect, to present, to follow up, to take care of our families. But what's the biggest thing that gets in our way? Point to it. It's the mindset. So I want you to have a look at the screen. This is what we call our 100x DNA manifesto. And these are powerful words and phrases that are designed to capture your attention. So when you look at the manifesto, what words or phrases stand out to you? Now, once you see what is stopping you or what you need to do, then you can start to make a lot more sales. So when you're ready, go to the chat box. Tell me what stands out to you. What captures your attention? Is it no excuses? Is it one new skill can change your life? Is it change your thinking? Change your life? Is it to live life on my terms? What is it for you? Kylie, thank you. I'm leaving a legacy. Excellent. Joe, no excuses. Ryan, no excuses. Jill, no excuses. Excellent. Well, the one that stands out to me is failure is not an option. See, if I fail, my family lose their security. If I fail, my community are going to look down on me. If I fail, how can I expect anybody to believe in me? So in my mind, failure is not an option. And let me ask you, would you take advice from a failure? Would you? No, you wouldn't. And that's why I say for me, failure is not an option. What are we going to do? We're going to succeed. So let me share some ideas. And when you're ready, I want you to make sure the volume's up. And I want to share with you a video. Now, this video is going to show you why mindset is so important. Most of you will remember this. And what you're going to see is you're going to see people with all the knowledge and all the skill, and they still fail because they have the wrong mindset. Here we go.
I wasn't all that nervous going into the final. I was excited to be in the final, and I was just out there soaking out the atmosphere and hoping that I could skate well. Basically just took up the tactic, well, my best chance here is only a very minimal chance, but I'm just going to stay out of the way, and that way if anything does happen, then I'll be there to capitalise. 20 metres down when the chaos happened and everybody fell down. The way I won the race, I wasn't going to be the guy that went around pumping the air and in disbelief and have a look of, I've got the gold medal. And
winner of the gold medal representing Australia, Stephen Bradbury.
Now, who remembers that? Do you remember Stephen Bradbury? Now, those Olympic athletes, they didn't fail because of knowledge or skill, did they? They were the best of the best, the world's best. They failed because they lost their focus. They lost their mindset. And although Stephen Bradbury was coming last, he eventually won gold because he kept his mind focused on winning, didn't he? Now, you can have the exact same knowledge. You can have the exact same skill as everybody else, but with the smaller shift in your mindset, then you can start to achieve any goal. So take a look at this photo. On the right-hand side, on top of the mountain, it says goal. And that's where we all want to be. But down the bottom of the mountain, you can see them struggling to achieve their goal. And what is blocking them? It's self-doubt. So how many of you have experienced that before? Have you? Have you experienced self-doubt? I have, many times throughout my career. And I love what it says here. It says maybe it would be easier if we put this down. So let me know in the chat box. Do you agree life would be easier if we got rid of the doubts? If you can't go to the chat box, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Do you think life would be easier if we got rid of the doubts? Excellent. Now, this leads us to something very interesting. What has your past got to do with your future? Now, maybe you know somebody who got into real estate and it didn't turn out as expected. And now in the back of your mind, you worried that you're not going to succeed. Sometimes you think maybe it's not going to work out for you. Or maybe you went and found a prospect, you presented, you closed, they promised you the sale, but then they betrayed you and they went to your competitor. Has that happened to you before? And now you start to worry, are other people going to take advantage of me? Am I that silly? Am I that stupid to actually have fallen for that? Or maybe COVID, or maybe the current interest rates have really impacted you. And now you're worried about your security and if you'll have enough security for the future. Has anybody felt like that? I believe we've all been through it. Now, over the past decade, I've performed more than 10,000 scientific case studies. And I've found there's 3 things stopping you from achieving your goals. And they are fears, doubts, and limiting beliefs. And I call these the killers of success. Now, the Wisconsin Business University's studies show that if you consider a fear for as little as 10 minutes, that can sabotage your success. And what it means is that these fears are so powerful, they stop you from taking action. And you know what makes it even more confusing? Harvard University has proven that only about 10% of us actually know how to deal with the fears. What do you do with your fears? Have you got a little place over there? I'm just going to put that over there for a little while. I'm just going to bury it down there. Has anybody been in the military before? What do? We compartmentalize it. Put it over there, Ryan, for a little while. Don't worry about that PTSD. That's just normal until you leave. So most of us actually don't know how to deal with these fears. Now, based on the latest research in neuroscience, there's 4 fears that kill success. And I want you to understand which ones are impacting you today. The first is the fear of being taken advantage of. And according to Inc. magazine, it impacts about 43% of the population. Now, if you want to grow your real estate business, it could stop you from building a team because you'll be afraid to trust them. So let me give you an example. As I said before, my mum was in pawn. My dad was in pawn, and we owned a pawnbroking business, just like Cash Converters. And my parents would say, if you employ people, they will take advantage of you. Now, because of this fear, it stopped them employing, and they had to do everything themselves. And over time, eventually it impacted their security. Have you found that there's just not enough time in the day to do everything? Have you figured that out yet? Well, my parents didn't figure it out for 17 years. And it was all because of a fear. Now, the second is the fear of rejection. And according to the research, it impacts 99% of the population. So if you find it difficult to say no, or you feel anxious when you're prospecting, or you're struggling to increase your sales, this one could be impacting you. Now, I remember when I was in real estate, I really struggled at the start. And I could feel it here. My chest would tighten up. My hands would start to sweat. And because of that fear, I used to have a lot of negative self-talk. I'd think crazy things, things that you've never thought of. I'd start to think, what if I ask them to buy? And they say no. I'd say to myself, Daniel, you're going to look like an idiot. You're going to look stupid. I'd start to think, who's going to take you serious? You're 19 years of age. You have no experience in the field. And you know what the worst one was? What if they ask you a question and you don't know the answer? And that caused me to fear rejection. Has anybody else felt like that before? Have you been through that? Interesting mindset, isn't it? Now, the third fear is the fear of losing your financial stability. And Forbes magazine reports that this fear impacts 66% of the population. Now, do you ever fear losing a sale? Are you worried that you're never going to get out of debt? Or do you fear you'll never be able to support your family with more? Now, if you said yes, then the fear of losing your financial stability will be impacting you. The fourth is the fear of making a mistake. And Harvard University says this fear impacts 30% of the population. Now, Ryan, are you eating a banana? No eye contact with me while you're eating that, please. Now, do you ever procrastinate? Worry that you don't know enough to call on a prospect? Or think you're going to disappoint someone if you make a mistake? Have you felt like that? See, one of my clients said she'd spend 60 minutes worrying about making a prospecting call because she feared making a mistake. Then instead of making the call, she would have a coffee, check social media, talk to her colleagues. And she'd worry that what she was going to say was never good enough. Anybody else felt like that? Now, here's the point. The fear didn't help her make calls. It only stopped her from making calls. Now, let me check in. Is this making sense so far? I know it's tough. Real estate agents have no ego at all. Salespeople have no ego at all. But maybe just within yourself, you might be able to identify just one of these fears. And it's very important in the first pillar of emotional intelligence that we gain awareness. Because if we can just say, yes, this is impacting me, then there's something magic that happens. If you can name it, you can start to tame it. So I was working with an Olympic athlete, gold medalist, said to me, I never feel anxious. I said, do you ever worry? I never worry. I'm confident. And I said, why are you losing all these matches? Why don't you have a gold medal anymore? How dare you say that? I'm an Olympic gold medalist. How dare you say that to me? Well, how is it that you're not able to perform consistently and win more gold medals? What do you feel when you go onto the field? I feel excited. I said, where do you feel excitement? She said, just here. And I said, where do you feel anxiety? She said, just here. Now, we're real estate agents. We're always selling, aren't we? It's not the worst house on the street. It's the one with the most opportunity. True? And we negotiate with our mind and we renegotiate our feelings. Now, let me ask you this. How many legs does a dog have? How many legs does a dog have? How many legs? Okay. Now, the dog has 4 legs and it's got a tail. Is that correct? I've got a French bulldog. The tail's about this big, but it's still a tail. Now, if we call the tail a leg, how many legs does the dog now have? Show me your fingers. Ryan! The dog doesn't have 5 legs. It doesn't matter what we call the tail. It'll always be a tail. It'll never be a leg. How many legs does a dog have? 4. And it doesn't matter what we call the tail. If we call it a leg, it's still a tail. Are you with me so far? So if we say I'm excited, but the emotion is anxiety, what's going to happen? I'm still going to feel anxious. Doesn't matter what I say. And this is the importance of being aware. So just think within yourself, do any of these fears impact you? Well, maybe you say no, and that's okay. Because the second killer of success are doubts. And doubts are a feeling of uncertainty. And there's 4 doubts that could stop you from making a ton of sales. Number 1, should I stay in sales? Who's ever thought that before? Should I stay in sales? Now, one of my clients, she dreamed of being a real estate agent, but she took a job in corporate because her family said it was going to be more stable. And she didn't want to disappoint them. 30 years later, she has no financial stability. And at age 50, she looks back on her life with regret, wishing she'd followed her passion. That's the first doubt. Doubt number 2, I'm not sure I'm ready. Now, this doubt stops your progress because you convince yourself it's not the right time for you to take action. Doubt number 3, what if I try? What if I fail? See, when you have this doubt, you start to feel anxious and you start to focus on what could go wrong rather than focusing on what could go right. And you'll start to say things like, I don't want to fail. I don't want to make a mistake. I want you to think about this for a moment. Have a look around your room. And I want you to say to yourself, don't look for white. 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 Look around your room and say, don't look for white. What's the first thing you see? You see white. And then you say to yourself, I shouldn't be looking for that. And you look around and say, don't look for white. You can't focus on what you don't want. Whatever you focus on, you attract. Your unconscious mind doesn't process negatives. Gentlemen, you're driving home, you say, I don't want to get into a fight with the missus tonight. What happens? Ah, that's what I didn't want. Isn't that interesting? I don't want to be late for the appointment. What happens? You get every single red light in the area where you live. Has that happened before? And if you don't have red lights, what happens? You get the slowest driver. And then you say, I knew that would happen. Self-fulfilling prophecies. What if I try? What if I fail? And doubt number 4, I can't sell because I'm an introvert. Now, if you feel this way, what we're really saying is, because I'm an introvert, I will fail. Have you heard of Elon Musk from Tesla? Jeff Bezos from Amazon? See, both are introverts. And the only difference between you and these billionaires is that they've developed the right mindset to overcome their doubts. So just have a look within. Are any of these doubts impacting you? Maybe they are, maybe they're not. And if they're not, then you might be held back by self-limiting beliefs. Now, I was stuck many years because of self-limiting beliefs. And self-limiting beliefs are beliefs that hurt you. Now, psychologists call them the enemy within. But what I like to call them? I like to call them the bullshit stories that we keep telling ourselves why we can't have what we want. And if you don't have what you want, then you've got to start to consider these limiting beliefs. Now, limiting beliefs are the killers of success. And there's 3 that really impact people in real estate. The first belief sounds like this: I'm not enough. When nobody's around, nobody's looking, and you're all by yourself, what do you say to yourself? I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not worthy enough. See, these limiting beliefs stop us from even trying. The second belief that hurts you is, I can't succeed because. I can't succeed because I'm not a natural born salesperson. I can't succeed because our commission is too high. Or I can't succeed because I'll disappoint my family. And when we have these limiting beliefs, we give up too soon. Now, the third belief that hurts you is this. It's too, and all you've got to do is fill in the blank. What do you say? It's too hard? It's too risky? Or do you say it's too late? And these beliefs hurt you. And we call them the killers of success. And these are the real reasons why people are stuck. Because there's no police force in your town coming to your door, putting a gun to your head saying you can't succeed. Is there? Is there a law in Australia that says you're not allowed to transact 150 properties per year? Is there? Is your boss coming, putting the gun to your chin saying you can't do 10 listings a month? Yes or no? Who puts the gun to our own head? We do. And it's in the form of fears, doubts, and limiting beliefs. And once we deal with these, we can start to have explosive results. And just like those people that I introduced you to before, who are achieving the results that you want in real time, they're all going to work on their mindset. So if Ryan, and I know he's generous, if Ryan gave you a $500,000 Ferrari, would you love that? Would you love that as a gift? Would you love it as a gift? Would you? Yes or no? You wouldn't love a $500,000 Ferrari. I would. Now, let me ask you, honestly, if Ryan gave you a $500,000 Ferrari, who here could drive that vehicle and get top performance out of it? Could you honestly hop in that vehicle and drive it and get maximum performance out of it? Yes or no? No. Why not? It's about the driver. The best driver in the world driving the worst car would still go faster and further than the worst driver in the Ferrari. So let me ask you, who's driving the bus? Who's driving your results? Who's in charge? You're in charge. And for us to become high performers, we've got to be free from those limitations. Now, who's a little bit confused? Who's struggling with this? A little bit confrontational, don't think that's happening to me. Anybody here? Or is it making sense? Making sense? Cool. Well, you might be asking yourself, well, where does it come from? See, it's nothing about with what's happening today. Psychologists, and Ryan and I learned this from Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy will tell you it takes 50 years to get over the first 5 years of your life. And throughout our life, what we have are significant emotional events. Have you ever had one of those before? A significant emotional event? A significant emotional event, a trauma, is enough to change your personality. And if we don't deal with those traumas, we drag that emotional baggage into our future. Imagine that. There's a traumatic event in the past, we haven't dealt with it. If we don't deal with it, what happens? We drag it into tomorrow. Where are my ladies? Ladies, have you met a man before when you were dating who had never gotten over his ex-girlfriend? Have you had that before, Jill? You think to yourself, how can we possibly move forward when you've got all that emotional baggage? What do you say in real estate to your team? Leave your baggage at the door. But you can't leave the baggage at the door. Wherever you go, there you are. You've heard that before? Wherever you go, there you are. So we've got to learn to put the baggage down. Now, there's 11 painful memories. And these are what's really blocking people. You've got the knowledge, you've got the skill to succeed. If you've got all the knowledge and you've got all the skill, it can only be one thing. Ryan talks to you about the Carnegie Triangle. He says success can be broken down to 3 components, can't it, Ryan? Knowledge, skill, and attitude. 7.5% of your success is going to be attributed to your knowledge. First of all, you acquire knowledge, and then you acquire then you acquire your skills. But knowledge and skills combined, according to the Carnegie studies and Stanford, only attribute to 15% of your success. Fully 85% of your success is going to come down to your attitude. Your attitude is your angle of approach. Am I approaching the prospect with fear? Am I approaching the price reduction, price improvement, with a fear of rejection? Am I knocking on doors thinking that this is just a waste of time? It's our angle of approach. Now, there's 11 painful memories that really impact our performance. If we've ever had the death of a child or loved one, this can impact our performance for years. If we've been dismissed from work, the divorce of our parents, if we're going through domestic or interpartner violence, if we've experienced physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, or financial abuse, if we'd have significant failures, it really stops us from moving forward. Divorce and separation can totally change our personality. If we've had an injury or illness, it can plague us for years. If we've had to say goodbye to a loved one, if there's been unplanned pregnancies or abortions, or victim of a crime. These are the 11 most painful memories that humans go through. And like Brian Tracy says, it takes us 50 years to overcome the first 5 years of our life. And for us to be high performers, and I know Ryan talks to you about this all the time, is you have to achieve peace of mind. If you're not at peace internally, it's almost impossible to hit your critical success factors. You can't hit the KPIs. You can't get the KRAs because your mindset is focused on other things. And Ryan talks to you about it all the time. Peace of mind is the number one most important thing. But we can't have peace of mind when we've never dealt with the past. So, what do the numbers say? If we go through those 11 painful experiences, even just one of them, it can increase our rates of depression by 46 times. Now, when I got into real estate, I don't want to say this in front of real estate agents, but I was told you got into real estate because you're depressed and you get out because you're depressed. And I'll tell you what, I was a train wreck when I got into real estate. I was an absolute train wreck. But hopefully that's not true for most people. But 46 times high depression. What do real estate agents experience depression about? It's about all the things that they want to do in the future, but they haven't been able to do it yet. Did you notice when COVID came along, all those dreams, goals, wishes, hopes, aspirations that you had for your future? Did you notice in a couple of months, all of that just got wiped out of your future? The depression comes from grieving those things that we think we've lost. Does it make sense? We can be sad about things from the past, but we can also be depressed and grieve the things that we've lost. Because every time you lose a listing or a sale, what happens? You lose the opportunity to do something in the future. Buy a house, buy a car, put your kids into school. So these painful memories really impact our performance. When we experience anger, and by the way, anger is a naturally occurring emotion, but when we can't control it, we lose 15 IQ points. And you know some of your competitors in the area, they're not that bright. But when they get angry, when you get the listing, that's a good thing because the IQ drops by 15 points. But the fear freezes the brain and leads to anxiety. Now, sadness causes memory loss. You could be sitting right in front of the client, thinking about all the things you got to do. You leave the appointment, you totally forget about it. Buyer's remorse kicks in. The client says, you didn't fulfill your promise. We're pulling the listing. Sadness impacts our memory loss. If we've got trauma, it lowers our IQ by 13%. And the guilt causes insomnia. So does anybody else feel guilty here about anything? Well, there's 5 types of guilt. Did you know that? Guilt number 1. Guilt for things that we've done. That's quite obvious. It's good to see Ryan eating a banana there and not a chocolate bar. He can eat the banana and have no guilt, but he eats the chocolate bar, looks down at his belly and says, I'm in trouble. So we experience guilt for things we've done. We also experience guilt for things that we want to do, but we haven't done. So, you know, when you say, I'm going to make 100 sales calls, 100 prospecting calls, and you don't do it, you feel guilty. And it immediately impacts your performance. But most of us aren't aware that it's happening. The third type of guilt is when we think we've said something and impacted somebody else. It's like we've had a little bit of voodoo with our words. We secretly say, this vendor's never going to get over 800,000 for this property. And the offer comes in at 700 and you think to yourself, did I just curse them? The fourth type of guilt is what's called survivor guilt. And it's when you've tried to help one of your team members become successful. And it doesn't matter what you do, nothing changes for them. You give them leads, they don't follow through. You give them coaching, they do nothing with it. And you start to feel guilty because you say, I can't spend any more time with this person. Have you been in that position before? And you walk away, but you feel so guilty, like I should have done more. I should have given them more time, more opportunity, but you've got to cut the tie and you've got to walk away. And then we also have a form of compassion fatigue. And it's when we just can't do anything for anybody else. I've done everything I can and I've got to now move on with my life. And these types of guilt really impact us and they impact our performance. Now, these emotions are stored inside of your brain. You can't see them. You can't touch them, but they're hidden inside of your brain. And today, you can actually measure your levels of emotional intelligence. Now, what we have today is we have this piece of technology, and through our voice waves, we can actually analyze our emotional frequency. In a 90-second voice recording, our artificial intelligence collects 1,440 emotional triggers. And it's phenomenal what you can do now. In 90 seconds, AI technology can measure your levels of emotional intelligence. And the interesting thing, ladies, where are my mums? Give me a wave, mums. Isn't it true that everything that you experience during the pregnancy impacts the child? If you're sick, it impacts the child. If you're emotionally unstable, it impacts the child. And with this technology, we can measure people's emotional frequencies and painful memories hidden in the brain from the final trimester in the womb, all the way up to now. And based on those memories and what's stored in the mind, it'll predict your personality. It'll predict your introvert or extroversion levels. It'll also predict the type of goals that you should be setting for yourself. And emotional intelligence is developing at such a fast speed that for all of you today, 6 of the most important skills in our future are going to come down to emotional intelligence. Being able to regulate your emotions, being able to communicate, being able to lead, being able to manage conflict. So when you focus on developing your emotional intelligence, you will become a high performer. And there's no lag time with emotional intelligence. As soon as you gain emotional awareness, your emotional quotient improves. And a 1 point A 1-point improvement in your emotional intelligence will see a $1,750 improvement in your income. Now, I worked with one agent. She was stuck at $80,000 per year in income, but her emotional intelligence was low. She couldn't regulate her emotions. Within 3 years of improving her emotional intelligence, she started to write $2.5 million. She didn't get lucky. She got intelligent. She understood who she was, why she thought the way that she did, and that led to a greater level of motivation. She didn't experience the setbacks, she rolled with the punches, and she started to achieve her goals on time, every time. So emotional intelligence, in summary, is going to be your biggest predictor of success. And I encourage all of you moving forward to develop that emotional intelligence. You're not too young to start, and you're not too old to start. But it also is contagious. And as you become more emotionally intelligent, you make better decisions. And that improves the workplace that you're in, and it also improves the relationships with your customers. So you are very important people. Everybody needs a home to live in, and you're going to be the people to find homes for the future. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm going to open this up for question and answers. If you've got questions, please put them in the chat box. If you want to share an insight or an aha moment, you've got me here for questions and answers. Thank you so much. Ryan, thank you.
Round of applause, everyone. That was absolutely brilliant. Daniel, you've come a long way since we spoke. Even though you were brilliant then, you've improved even off that. So first of all, congratulations, mate. The way you articulate your tonality, your modulation, your content, your engagement, mate, absolutely brilliant. One of the best I've seen. So
thank you.
But I don't want to give you a big head because I know how that happens with us. We tend to. No, I'm only kidding. Well done, mate. Great job. Guys, we've got Daniel for another 10 minutes or so, if he can spare that with us. You've now got the opportunity to probably speak to someone with who I believe is probably the go-to person for emotional intelligence and being able to convert that into your everyday success, life, happiness, money, whatever it is that you're chasing. So who has a question for Daniel?
You know, Ryan, thank you for the compliment on the voice. Very important that we communicate with clarity. I went and did Brian Tracy's Speakers Academy. Did you go to that, Ryan?
I didn't, mate. I didn't know.
So I went there and he said, hey, Daniel, you've got some great stories. You've got great experience. He said, but your tonality is not effective. See, there's 3 types of tones. Did you know this? There's 3 tones. There's a question tone, there's a statement tone, and then there's a command tone. Now, the problem with the Australian language is we use too much of the question tone. Hey, mate, how you going? Selling the house? Want to reduce the price? Everything sounds like a question, and it creates confusion in the other person's mind. See, fully 38% of your communication is going to come down to your tone of voice. 38%. 55% has to do with your physiology, and only 7% has to do with your words. Like I used to say all the right things, but I was in the wrong tone of voice. And I was from Penrith. Who's heard of Penrith before? I used to work in St. Mary's. My parents had a business in St. Mary's. I'm redneck. Hey mate, how you going? Yeah, really whiny type of voice, speaking out the side of the mouth. How you going? And I used to deliver like that, and people wouldn't pay attention to me. So I went and learned how to speak. I hired Oprah Winfrey's voice coach, and I worked with him since 2016 because Brian, my mentor, said, you've got to get a voice coach. So I've worked with him nonstop. And what I saw in the first 6 months, Ryan, was my sales increased $100,000 because I got my tone right. I sounded like an authority, and my voice started to resonate. See, what we say is that people need to feel you. But if you've got a high-pitched, whiny voice, people don't feel you. But when the voice resonates from the chest cavity, the voice goes out, the voice waves go out to the other person, and you can feel the voice inside of you, even if you're on the other side of the planet. So thank you, Ryan. It took a long time, and I wish I knew this when I was in real estate, because I think, how many listings did I lose? Because, do you like the price? Can we start this Tuesday? Versus, can we start this Tuesday? And when you say it like an authority, it's a command. Why do Americans get the votes and the endorsement of the world? Because they use a command tone. If our Prime Minister, and by the way, I live in Taiwan, but if the Australian Prime Minister said, we're going to war, it would sound like this. We're going to war? We're going to war? Where the American president will say, we're going to war. It's a command, and it drives you to action. So I learned NLP, and I train NLP, and one of the big components, Ryan, is getting the voice right. And once you master the voice, remember, what is your tool, ladies and gentlemen? What is your tool in real estate? Point to it. What is your tool? What is your tool? It's your voice. You're professional speakers. You speak, you sell, you deliver. And you've got to get the voice right.
Beautiful, mate. That's absolutely spot on. And thanks. Anyone else for a question? Anyone else who wants a question? Who's got a question for Daniel?
I only consult 3 billionaires, so you better quickly make the most of me.
So Daniel, I mean, you've mentioned so much there that I for me it's good revision, and just driving home even some of my own sort of guilt, fears, all of those stuff. Just such a great reminder, and for these guys, I'm sure they got tons out of it. There's it's so much there that I loved, absolutely loved. But obviously,
Brian, can I just ask? Can I ask Daniel a question?
Sure, go for it.
Daniel, so you've gone through sort of the recognising of all these different emotional things that we've brought up. So like your guilt and things like that. So once you recognise it, then what are the tools? How do I phrase this? What are the tools then to, okay, you recognise this, okay, what tools can you or advice can you give if you have recognised something in order to change it?
Yeah, beautiful question.
Great question.
So if you think about a builder has a tool belt, and he's got many different tools to do the job. So if he has to hammer a nail into the timber, he uses a hammer. If he needs to cut the wood, he's got to use the saw. But when it comes to the mindset, we need to use both cognitive and emotional tools. So if we have negative self-talk, and I'm sure Ryan talks to you about this, we've got to quickly substitute the negative thoughts. Now, you can only hold a positive or a negative thought in consciousness, Damien. So let's break it down. According to the Midwestern Brain Institute, you have 60,000 thoughts per day. 60,000! Out of which 95% are on repeat. And 80% of those are negative in nature. So if we catch ourselves with a negative thought, we have to use a law called the law of substitution. And you've got to quickly change the way that you think. Remembering that your thoughts influence 95% of your feelings. Most people are trying to fix their feelings, but they don't get to the root cause, which is their thoughts. So Damien, if you're saying to yourself, for an example, what if they ask me a question and I don't know how to answer it? Immediately a negative emotion will follow. Now, the emotion you're going to feel somewhere between 4 and 30 seconds. That's it. So fast. And then it turns into a mood. Now, is anybody here just honestly in a sales slump at the moment? Sometimes we get in a sales slump because it's preceded by a mood. And a mood we can stay in for a day, a week, a month, a quarter. And it's because of the way that we think. And these thoughts are so far out of our conscious awareness. Now, the reason why you're with Ryan is because you're looking for a mentor, you're looking for a guide. And when you work closely with Ryan, he's going to pick up on these language patterns. You won't hear them because you're just repeating the same things over and over every day. We're not conscious of it. It becomes unconscious. And so working with your mentor, Ryan, is going to point out to you, this language pattern's hurting you. And then using the law of substitution, you've just got to say, well, what's the opposite? If they ask me a question and I don't know how to answer it, you've got to flip it over. If they ask me a question, I'll do my very best to respond. And automatically, it'll change the way that you feel. So that's the first thing. You've got to deal with thinking problems with thinking tools, and a lot of reframing has to take place of how we think. The other one is working with emotional tools. So an emotion, where is it, ladies and gentlemen? Can you point to it? I got no idea where it is. It's not here right now. Well, it is. It's just outside of your awareness. And what happens is we often repress painful memories. And the subconscious mind represses these painful memories for your protection. I know people have scammed you. I know people have cheated you. I know people have lied to you. But to get on with your life, what do? We just put it over there and repress it. And we say, one day I'll deal with it. And that one day hasn't come. Now, we repress it. It requires a lot of emotional energy to repress. But the unconscious mind will keep presenting it for resolution. And oftentimes what happens, Damien, you've just had your best week, your best month, your best year, and all of a sudden all that stuff comes up to the surface and you go, oh God, why am I thinking about that? And you push it back down. Then, eventually, over time, if we don't deal with it, it turns into a psychosomatic illness. And it's where the mind makes the body sick. And fully 84% of illnesses today are psychosomatic in nature. Have you noticed? You might not have noticed it yet, but you'll notice it this year. Just before September comes around, they're going to start to advertise Clarinase and Zyrtex on all the bus stops. And what's going to happen? Everybody's going to say, yes, it's time to sneeze. Ah, phew! The mind makes the body sick. Have you noticed that? The mind makes the body sick. So if we don't deal with it, it'll come out in things like, if you're experiencing a lot of anger, it's going to calcify the heart. The heart is going to harden up. Now, you're not going to notice it until you have a heart attack. If you're experiencing a lot of sadness, you're going to get sick. The human body is designed to be healthy. It's not designed to be sick. But the sadness weakens your immune system. When you experience a lot of fear leads to anxiety, hypertension. It can also carry over to post-traumatic stress disorder, even postnatal depression. If you're experiencing a lot of inner conflict, hey, who's got a little angel on their shoulder and a little devil on the other one? The alarm goes off at 6 o'clock and says, I'm going for a run. And the devil says, it's cold in Perth today. Just sleep in. You deserve it. You've been working hard. You know, you've been battling it out for 30 or 40 years. You deserve a sleep. And we also always have these inner conflicts, true? Now, when we don't deal with these inner conflicts, Damien, it actually leads to cancer. And so all these people get diagnosed with cancer every single year, but it has come from a significant emotional event. It's called a Uden moment. Something happened in your life unexpected. It was dramatic. You felt isolated and there was no coping strategy. And you can mark my word, people are already dying, but you're going to see the fallout of COVID over the next 18 months. More people are going to die and more people are going to get cancer because of these inner conflicts. So all of these things show up in psychosomatic illness. Oh, my psoriasis, better get some cream. The cream's not going to fix the thoughts that created the psoriasis. Does that make sense? So we're going to have mental tools for mental problems and emotional tools for emotional problems. And Ryan is your go-to guy. Ryan, with your community, are you using reports like DISC reports?
We have introduced this to the crew. Yes, we have. We've got a few supercharged sessions where Grant's spoken about DISC, I've spoken about DISC. But what I'd like...
Can I just let me just make one point on that one, just one final point.
Sure.
Damien, DISC is a tool, a mental tool. So working with Ryan and Grant, that is one of the first go-to tools to use. And what happens is, Ryan and I learned about DISC many years ago. I used to think all of my strengths were weaknesses. Daniel, you're too aggressive, you're too optimistic, you move too fast, you don't pay attention to detail. And people used to curse me in corporate for that. What do business owners want from me today? Oh, Daniel, I've got to get out of this comfort zone. I want to be more aggressive. I want to be more competitive. I want to be more optimistic. I want to change faster. I'm sick of this comfort zone. And I get caught up in the details. I'm so worried I'm going to make a mistake. Everything's got to be 110% perfect. And DISC will give you that clarity. So, Damien, thank you so much. Ryan, my apologies.